Okay, so memory loss. It's something we all think about, right?
It is, yeah.
Like it's one of those topics, it's like death and taxes. I feel like it's always looming.
Yeah.
You sent us a ton of articles and research and medical journals and even stuff from Trends in Cognitive Sciences all about memory loss.
I
So
know. Yeah.
let's deep dive with our expert and try and unpack it.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Um,
So it does seem like a common worry. Like every time
sure. Yeah.
I misplace my keys,
Uh-huh.
I'm like, oh no, this is it.
This is the beginning of the end.
This is the beginning of the end. Yeah. But one of the articles you sent, the Medical Journal Australia, had this really interesting story about Alan,
Oh, Alan.
72-year-old retired solicitor,
Okay.
increasing forgetfulness. His wife was starting to get really worried,
Understandably.
but he was still driving, handling finances, playing bridge.
Right. It's that distinction, isn't it? Between
Yeah.
just sort of normal aging and something a bit more serious.
So how do we figure out
Where we fall on that spectrum.
Well, I guess it's helpful to think of it as a spectrum. I mean, you have normal age-related changes, which most people experience, and then you have mild cognitive impairment, which is kind of like
MCI. Yeah.
MCI, yeah, that's right, which is kind of like a gray area.
So is MCI a precursor to dementia?
Well, not always, no. Some people with MCI stay the same. Some even get a little bit better over time. And then some might go on to develop dementia, but there's no real way to tell or predict at the moment who will and who won't. There's actually this paper in PLOS1 called Age Correction of Test Scores Reduces the Validity of Mild Cognitive Impairment in Predicting Progression to Dementia.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
It is, yeah, but it essentially just highlights that it's really complex and relying on tests alone is not really enough to predict the future.
Yeah. So no crystal ball for us. But
unfortunately not. No.
Besides the big A word, Alzheimer's,
yeah.
What actually causes memory loss?
Well, actually, the causes are really diverse. The Medical Journal of Australia article that you mentioned, they actually listed quite a few possibilities like depression, medication side effects, even things like alcohol abuse. Even thyroid problems can contribute to memory loss as well. So it's not always a straightforward neurological issue.
So some memory loss can actually be reversed.
That's exactly, yeah. If the underlying cause is found and you can address it, then you can often see improvements in cognitive function.
Huh. So it's not a hopeless situation.
Not at all, no.
But speaking of hope, I imagine a lot of people are looking for that magic bullet to prevent dementia. Is there one?
Well, I wish there was an easy answer to that question. Unfortunately, there's no guaranteed way to prevent dementia entirely. But, and this is important, that doesn't mean we're powerless. That Trends in Cognitive Sciences review you said had a lot of research showing that lifestyle factors can significantly reduce your risk.
So what's the secret sauce? What do we got to do to keep our brains healthy as we age?
Well, one of the most important things, and there's a lot of research to support this, is physical activity. Think of it like exercise for your brain. Physical activity can actually protect the hippocampus, which is a brain region that's crucial for memory.
Okay, so hitting the gym is going to help me remember where I put my keys.
Well, it's more than just remembering where you put your keys. The hippocampus is involved in forming new memories.
Right.
Connecting memories to emotions, senses. It's really a vital part of the brain.
So that delicious meal had last week, the hippocampus is helping me remember the details. I'm sold. I'm going to the gym.
Good.
Yeah.
That's the spirit. So it's not just physical activity. Staying mentally and socially engaged is also really important.
Right. So it's the use it or lose it phenomenon, but for
the brain.
For the brain.
Yeah. So challenge yourself, learn new things, have those meaningful conversations. All of that is really important for maintaining a healthy brain.
That makes sense. You gotta keep those neural pathways firing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, what about our genes? Do they play a role?
The age-old nature versus nurture debate. Yeah. Genes definitely have an influence. The Trends in Cognitive Sciences review talked about this quite a bit. They mentioned twin studies and this gene called BDNF, which plays a role in neuron growth and survival. Okay. So it's really important.
So if you inherit the bad version, you're just...
Well, it's not quite as simple as that. While certain gene variants might make you more susceptible to cognitive decline, it's not a predetermined fate. You still have a lot of control over your brain's destiny. Think of it like this. Your genes provide the blueprint.
Okay.
But your lifestyle choices influence how that blueprint is actually expressed.
I like that. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So I'm not just a slave to my DNA.
Exactly. No, you have a lot of power.
I have choices.
Yeah.
This is where I think it gets really interesting. You mentioned this concept of brain maintenance, like how some older adults maintain youthful brains.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating area of research. It actually kind of challenges the traditional view of aging as just this inevitable decline. Some people just show very minimal structural or functional changes in their brains, even as they age.
So the brains just don't age.
Well, it's not that they don't age at all, but they seem to age more gracefully. The review talks about studies where high-performing older adults, the ones with these youthful brains, they actually exhibited very similar brain activation patterns during memory tasks to younger adults.
Wow. So even as we age, our brains can stay young.
That's right. And it's not just random luck either. It seems that these individuals often engage in specific activities and lifestyle choices that contribute to this brain maintenance. For example, one of the studies they talked about looked at London taxi drivers. Yeah. Now, London taxi drivers are famous for their incredible spatial memory. To get their license, they have to memorize this vast network of streets. It's called the knowledge.
The knowledge. Okay,
Yeah, and this intense training actually changes their brains.
Really? So like learning all those streets makes their brain physically different.
That's right. The study found that these drivers had larger hippocampi, remember that's the memory area, compared to control groups. And here's the fascinating part. The longer they'd been driving, the larger their hippocampi were.
So their brains are actually getting a workout.
Exactly, like they're bulking up their brains as they age.
Maybe I need to switch careers.
Yeah.
So are there other examples?
Well, I wouldn't recommend becoming a London cab driver necessarily.
Yeah, maybe not. Are there any other examples
That there are.
of this brain maintenance in action?
Absolutely, yeah. Another study they mentioned focused on older adults who were multilingual. So people who speak multiple languages. And they found that these individuals showed less age-related decline in certain cognitive abilities, particularly attention and executive function, which is basically the brain's ability to plan, focus, and multitask.
Okay. So speaking multiple languages is like cross-training for your brain.
Exactly. It keeps those neural pathways firing, constantly switching back and forth between languages.
Yeah. This is all so encouraging. It really does sound like we have a lot more control over our cognitive health than we realize. But let's be realistic. Some memory loss as we age is inevitable.
Right. Well, that's true. Our bodies change. Our brains change. It's part of life. But we're not just passengers on this aging journey.
Right.
We can actively make choices that support brain health and potentially delay or even minimize that decline.
And this makes me think back to Alan. In that Medical Journal of Australia article. Even though he had MCI, he was able to actually improve his mood and cognitive function.
That's right, yeah.
Through lifestyle changes.
Through lifestyle changes, yeah. And remember, even though he did eventually develop Alzheimer's disease, even then he benefited from treatments and strategies that help manage his symptoms and improve his quality of life.
You've mentioned treatments before, like those cholinesterase inhibitors.
Yes.
Do those actually slow down Alzheimer's?
That's a common misconception.
Okay.
And the article actually addresses this directly. Cholinesterase inhibitors, like Dunpezil, they can help manage symptoms and improve quality of life for a time, but they don't change the underlying course of the disease.
Okay. So it's more about symptom management.
That's right. It's about making things a little bit easier day to day. Yeah.
What about non-pharmaceutical approaches? Are there things that can help with the behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia?
Yeah. The Medical Journal of Australia article really emphasizes that non-pharmaceutical strategies are often the first line of treatment for something called BPSD, which stands for Behavioral and Psychological Symptoms of Dementia.
BPSD.
BPSD.
So things like agitation, aggression.
Exactly. Things like agitation, aggression, delusions even.
Yeah. And those are really hard
They are.
for the person experiencing it and for the caregiver.
Absolutely. For everybody involved, it's very difficult. But there are things that can help.
Okay.
The article mentions things like identifying and avoiding triggers for behavioral disturbances, creating a calm and supportive environment, even just engaging in activities that bring the person joy and meaning.
This is about, making them feel safe and comfortable as much as possible.
It's all about understanding their needs, recognizing that their behavior is often a form of communication
Yeah.
and responding with compassion and support.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, we've covered so much in this deep dive. We've talked about the different types of memory loss, this hopeful concept of brain maintenance,
Yeah.
the power of lifestyle. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more thing.
Okay.
The impact this all has on caregivers.
Of course. Yeah.
Caring for someone with dementia is incredibly demanding,
It is.
both physically and emotionally.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Medical Journal of Australia article talked about this as well.
Ah.
It talked about the vital role that carers play in the lives of people with dementia, enabling them to stay at home and maintain the best possible quality of life. But it also acknowledged the huge challenges
Yeah.
that caregivers face.
Burnout must be a huge issue.
Yeah, it's a real concern.
Are there resources and support available for caregivers?
Thankfully, yes, there are. The article listed several organizations offering caregiver support, including Alzheimer's Australia.
Okay.
They provide things like support groups, counseling services, and access to information and resources.
So it sounds like having that support network is crucial
It is. It really is.
for both the person with dementia
Yeah.
and the caregiver.
Absolutely. It takes a village, as they say. Knowing you're not alone in this can make all the difference.
That's so true. This has been an incredible deep dive.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm walking away
Yeah, me too.
with a renewed sense of hope and like a to-do list
Yeah,
for my brain.
me too. It has been a really insightful discussion. And it's clear that while some aspects of aging are inevitable,
Yeah.
we really do have more influence over our cognitive health than we might think. And that's an important message.
Absolutely. But before we sign off officially, I
Yeah.
have a thought-provoking question for our listeners.
Mhm.
We've talked about maintaining our brains, but this Trends in Cognitive Sciences review mentioned something really interesting. Brain plasticity continues into old age.
Hmm.
So could there actually be ways to restore a more youthful brain signature, even if there's already been some decline? What kind of interventions could potentially do that?
That's a fantastic question. And that's really where the cutting edge of research is focused right now. We know that the brain is capable of changing throughout life, and there's a lot of excitement around interventions that could actually rejuvenate brain function.
So not just slowing it down, but actually reversing
Yeah,
it.
potentially reversing it. Yeah, that's the hope. There are a few promising areas being explored.
Okay.
Things like cognitive training programs, for example, have shown some real success in improving memory and attention in older adults. These programs often involve challenging tasks that target specific cognitive skills.
So like a boot camp for your brain.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's like giving your brain a workout.
I like that.
Yeah, and it's not just about computerized brain games either. Engaging in activities that challenge you intellectually, like learning a new language or a musical instrument, can have similar benefits.
What about things like meditation and mindfulness?
Yeah, that's a great point. There's growing evidence that these practices can have a positive impact on the brain,
Wow.
especially when it comes to stress reduction and emotional regulation. And some studies have even shown improvements in cognitive functions like attention and memory as well.
So a calmer mind equals a sharper brain.
It seems that way. There's
Yeah.
definitely a strong connection there.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
And of course, we can't forget the basics.
Yeah.
Regular exercise, a balanced diet, quality sleep. These are all essential.
Always comes back to the
Yeah.
fundamentals, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It all comes back to those basic foundational habits. They're really the key ingredients for
Yeah.
a healthy brain.
This has been such a fascinating and empowering deep dive. We've explored the complexities of memory loss. We've debunked some myths and uncovered the amazing potential of brain maintenance and plasticity.
I agree. It's been a real journey of discovery, and I hope our listeners are leaving with a deeper understanding of this really important topic.
We've given you a lot to think about, but remember, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
Understanding memory loss empowers all of us to make informed choices about our health and well-being.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Keep exploring this topic, stay curious, and most importantly, keep those brains active and engaged.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds sharp.
Absolutely. See you next time. So these London taxi drivers are fascinating. They have to memorize this huge network of streets, thousands of streets, to get their license.
Yeah, I've heard of that. It's like the knowledge or
That
something.
is the knowledge, yeah, and it actually changes their brains.
No way. Really?
Yeah, they did a study and found that these drivers had larger hippocampi, That's the area of the brain associated with memory.
Right, we were talking about that before.
Exactly. Compared to control groups, these taxi drivers had bigger hippocampi.
Hmm.
And, here's the kicker, the longer they'd been driving, the larger their hippocampi were.
Wow. So their brains were like getting a workout and growing.
Yeah, you could say that, like they're bulking up their brains as they age.
Okay, so I'm not going to become a London taxi driver.
Right. Probably not the best career move.
But are there other examples of this brain maintenance thing for normal people?
Yeah, definitely. There's another study mentioned in that Trends in Cognitive Sciences review. They looked at older adults who were multilingual.
Okay, people who speak multiple languages.
Exactly. And they found that these individuals showed less age-related decline in certain brain functions, like attention and what we call executive function.
What's executive function?
It's basically your brain's ability to plan, focus, and multitask.
Oh, okay, I need to work on that.
Well, maybe speaking multiple languages would help. The theory is that it's like mental gymnastics. It keeps those neural pathways active and firing.
It's like cross-training for your brain.
Exactly. So keep learning new languages, stay mentally active.
I like it.
Yeah, it's encouraging, right?
Mm-hmm.
We really do have more control over our cognitive health than we realize.
It is encouraging.
Yeah.
But let's face it, as we get older, some memory loss is inevitable, right?
Well, yeah, our bodies change and our brains change. It's a natural part of aging. But it doesn't mean we're helpless.
Right.
We can make choices that support our brain health, maybe even delay or minimize that decline.
Like Alan from that Medical Journal of Australia article.
Yeah, like Alan. Even though he was diagnosed with MCI, remember?
Yeah.
He was actually able to improve his mood and his brain function for a time just by changing his lifestyle.
That's right.
And even though he did eventually develop Alzheimer's, he still benefited from treatments that managed his symptoms.
Right. You mentioned treatments before, like those cholinesterase inhibitors, right?
Yeah.
Do those actually slow down Alzheimer's?
That's a common question, but the answer's a little tricky. The article is very clear on this.
Yeah, okay.
Cholinesterase inhibitors like donepezil, they can help manage the symptoms, they can improve quality of life for a time, but they don't actually change the progression of the disease itself.
So they don't stop it?
No, they don't. It's more about managing the symptoms and making life a little easier.
Yeah. Are there other things that can help? Maybe non-drug approaches for the behavioral and psychological symptoms?
Absolutely. And in fact, the Medical Journal of Australia article emphasized that non-drug approaches are often the first line of treatment. They call it BPSD, Behavioral and Psychological Symptoms of Dementia.
BPSD, yeah.
Yeah, things like agitation, aggression, sometimes even delusions.
Right. That's got to be so hard for everyone involved.
It is really tough,
Yeah.
but there are things that can help, like figuring out what triggers those behaviors and avoiding them, creating a calm and supportive environment, even engaging in activities that they enjoy and find meaningful.
So it's about making them feel
Safe and secure, yeah. And also understanding that their behavior is often a way of communicating something. We need to respond with compassion and try to figure out what they need.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, we've covered so much in this deep dive. We talked about different types of memory loss, the concept of brain maintenance, and the impact of lifestyle. But before we wrap up, I want to
Yes.
touch on one more thing. Caregivers.
Of course, a crucial part of this whole conversation.
Caring for someone with dementia can be incredibly demanding, both physically and emotionally.
Absolutely. It's a huge responsibility and a real challenge. The Medical Journal of Australia article talked about how important caregivers are.
Yeah.
They allow people with dementia to stay in their homes longer and have a better quality of life. But it's hard work, and caregivers need support too.
Yeah, burnout must be a big concern. Are there resources available to help them?
Thankfully, there are. The article lists a bunch of organizations that offer support, like Alzheimer's Australia. They provide support groups, counseling, and information for caregivers.
So it sounds like finding a support network is crucial.
It is, for both the person with dementia and their caregivers. It takes a village, right? It's important to know you're not alone in this.
Absolutely. This deep dive has been so eye-opening. I feel like I'm walking away with a renewed sense of hope and a to-do list for my brain.
Me too. It's been a great discussion, and I think the takeaway is that we have more influence over our cognitive health than we think.
Yeah, that's a powerful message. But before we officially sign off, I've got one final question for our listeners, something to think about. We've talked about maintaining a healthy brain, but that Trends in Cognitive Sciences review mentioned brain plasticity,
Yeah,
and that it continues even into old age.
that's right.
So could there be ways to actually, like, restore a brain to a more youthful signature?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's a really exciting area of research.
Yeah.
We know the brain can change throughout life, and there's a lot of promising research going on right now looking at interventions that could actually rejuvenate brain function.
So we're not just talking about slowing down the decline, but
Yeah.
actually like reversing it.
Yeah, potentially reversing it. That's the hope. There are a few promising avenues that researchers are exploring.
Like what?
Well, cognitive training programs, for example. Some of them have had some pretty good success in improving memory and attention in older adults.
Okay.
They often involve challenging tasks that work on specific cognitive skills.
So it's like a brain boot camp.
Ah, exactly. You got to use it or lose it, right?
Yeah. Push those
Yeah.
mental muscles. I like it.
Yeah, and it's not just about those computerized brain training games. Learning a new language or playing a musical instrument,
Yeah.
those kinds of things can have similar benefits.
Right. What about meditation?
Ah, meditation. Yeah, there's more and more evidence coming out all the time showing that things like meditation and mindfulness can be really good for the brain,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to stress and managing your emotions. And some studies have shown improvements in things like attention and memory.
So a calmer mind, sharper brain.
That seems to be the case, yeah.
Interesting.
And of course, we can't forget about the importance of a healthy lifestyle in all of this.
Nice.
Regular exercise, good diet, quality sleep.
Yeah.
Those are all essential for brain health no matter how old you are.
It always comes back to those basic things.
It does, doesn't it?
Mm.
It's about making choices that support your brain throughout your whole life.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
I feel like we've really gone deep into the complexities of memory loss.
Yeah.
And I love that we ended on such a hopeful note with this idea of brain maintenance and plasticity.
Me too. I think it's important for people to realize that they're not powerless when it comes to their brain health.
Absolutely. To our listeners,
Yeah.
we've given you a lot to think about today. But remember, knowledge is power.
That's right.
Understanding memory loss empowers us to make informed choices about our health and well-being.
Couldn't agree more. Keep learning, stay curious, and keep those brains active and engaged.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds sharp.
See you next time.